Hey, Tara.
Hey, Jen.
What are you listening to this week? Welcome to Season 5 of What Are You Listening To? The weekly podcast created to foster community through music by sharing the stories behind the songs that soundtrack our lives. Some of the songs are old, some new, all good. I'm Jenn Tully, and this week I'm joined by one of the most instantaneously magical people I've ever met, Tara Parker. Tara is the host of Behind the Blades on YouTube. There, she shares what it's like to be a professional rollerblader. She was also a mascot in college at the University of South Carolina. She was the first female to ever put on an NFL mascot suit. She completed a marathon on skates last September in Berlin, Germany, and she is hell bent on spreading joy everywhere she goes. This week, Tara and I are going to get to know each other through 4 songs. 2 are her picks and 2 are mine. We'll discuss Taylor Swift, because I'll never stop, new to me music, and 1995. Which songs do you think we're going to discuss? Tune into our conversation to find out. And in case our song picks are new to you, we'll publish a playlist with the episode so you don't miss a beat. Tara, I am so excited to have you on the show. So let's dive right in. What are you listening to this week?
Oh, Jen, it is wonderful to be on the show with you. Thank you for having me and inviting me and creating this space to share the stories behind the music. Music is so important to me, and I play, I listen, and I have been listening on my skates, as you mentioned, to some amazing music this week. But I was out on my skates on Thursday,
Okay.
and I have not been on my skates for a minute, and I put it on and I put my soundtrack, my playlist on shuffle.
Okay.
And Marjorie by Taylor Swift came up. And I get asked a lot, what am I listening to when I'm skating? But you would think it would be something a little upbeat. You would think it would be something, you might see me dancing when I'm out on
Yep.
my skates. I do dance a lot, but Marjorie came on, and I was crossing the pedestrian bridge, and oh, it just hit me how beautiful this song is and how special of a moment it was to watch this beautiful sunset as I'm doing my favorite thing in the world, listening to my favorite artist. And I have been thinking a lot about my family, and I never got to meet my grandmother, and
Okay.
I always wondered, what would we do together? What would our relationship be if we had the opportunity to connect together today? And she is the maternal grandmother. And
Okay.
so I have someone in my life that I call grandma, though she is not blood related to
Okay.
me. Her name is Martha, my maternal grandmother who passed.
Okay.
So Martha, Marjorie,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's not too far off. And I started to think about this song in terms of Martha being the subject. And Taylor in this song talks about all of these mementos that she saved from her grandmother. And her grandmother was an opera singer. And
Hmm.
so you can see that maybe they would have been singing together. And there's a point in the Eras tour that Taylor comes out and she's singing this song. And it's not one, again, that you would think is typically on her set list, just like I'm maybe not typically listening to this on my skates. But she comes out, and the whole stadium, when I was there and I saw it in person, we put on our flashlights and we created this very spiritual moment that connected everybody in that moment to someone that they were missing, right? I think we all have that feeling of missing someone, even if we didn't know them. You don't have to know them personally and have those physical moments on earth with them to feel that nostalgia. So yeah, that came on and I was brought back to that moment. And I consider myself to be a very spiritual person, and you talk about being a magical human being in that wonderful intro. And I do describe myself as magical because whether people believe this or not, I feel as if I can tap into my spiritual safe space when I am listening to certain music, Taylor being one, on my skates. And so combining that moment of the sunset, my skates, Marjorie, I had this feeling and I had this vision that, wow, I wonder, I know it sounds far fetched, but I wonder if my grandmother Martha would have been skating with me. Like, there are a lot of people that I skate with who are older, and that's the beauty about skating is that you never, there's no age limit to it. You can be 4 years old, you can be 44, and you can be 94.
Yep.
And going, wow, I bet that she would be right here with me crossing this bridge. And I had this vision of her like holding my hand with me, and we were just skating off into the sunset. And it was so emotional. It was so beautiful. And that entire day from kind of that point on transformed into this really serendipitous experience. And I find that happens so often when I create the space to tap into what I love and create, like we were kind of chatting before we started the show, creating that intentional space,
Yep.
being mindful about what you're doing and inviting the scenario that you're in to be the best experience it can be, and really just tapping into that energy. So Marjorie is what I was listening to this week on my skates.
I love
Oh,
it so much. And I have to kind of just paint the picture for folks too. So we both live in Austin, Texas, and I'll get
yes.
into this a little bit more when I get into my first song pick. But you, like the way that we met was we were at an outdoor concert and you were skating, and
Yeah.
my daughter ran into you with her friends and sort of introduced us. And it's just it's magical to see somebody like it's called rexing, right? When you're like dancing on skates, is that right? So
Uh-huh.
like that
Uh-huh.
it's just amazing to see somebody do that first off, because you're like, oh my gosh, are they gonna fall, like what's happening, like it just creates like immediate excitement around what you're
Yeah.
doing. And
Yeah.
then to see like you were wearing like red glittery lipstick and like this really colorful outfit, and you're just like, I have to know this person, like what is
Yes.
she all about, I want to know. And so it is interesting because you do give off such a bright, cheerful aura. And I think after hearing this story, it's because you are so mindful, right? Like
Yeah.
when
Oh.
you're doing something that you love and you're in the zone, like that can be meditation, right? I feel like I always thought like meditation had to be silent and still and quiet, and it doesn't. It can be
Yeah.
whatever puts you in that state where you can really dial in. And so hearing that this song, even though it is slow paced, even though it seems counterintuitive to think, what, this girl wearing like butterfly wings and red lipstick and rainbow everything is like skating to Marjorie? What are you talking about?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
and now it makes sense, right? I'm like, I see the connection. Like, you were in your Zen zone and had this really beautiful day. And I think that happens a lot. The more you're able to notice how much like the universe has your back, the more it does, right? It's
Yes.
just
Oh,
true. It's so true. And I feel like that's one of those like wisdom with age things that I'm so grateful I finally understand, because it really
yes.
starts to manifest everywhere whenever you start seeing it. And it's not magic. I think it's just, well, to me, it's kind of magic, but
Right.
I think it's more just like the gratitude, like, it just breeds more. Like the more you're putting out there, the more you're getting back. And so,
Yeah.
um, that's
Yeah.
what this sounds like. These playlists come together, they're totally organic. I don't put any parameters on it. This, I literally say to guests like, bring me two songs. And the reason the
Yeah.
show's structured this way is because I could ask interview questions, but it's harder to get there. It's harder to get to the meat. Whereas if we drop in on a song, like I can immediately get somewhere with somebody. And the same with
Yeah.
me, right? Like I can immediately bring you into a special memory of mine. And
Yeah.
I think that it's just, again, as we go through these songs, I hope every week that listeners kind of find the same through lines, or even a different through line, or no through line at all. It's not a requirement, but I'm always amazed at how there are through lines that connect kind of in all of these organic songs that just kind of came together out of the clear blue sky, these 4 disparate songs that somehow come together and make this playlist every week. And so
Yeah.
hearing this story and how these songs came to you, and you had mentioned to me when you sent them over, like, oh, these 2 songs revealed themselves to me in a really beautiful way. And so I was very
Yeah.
curious about that. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
and I think that, just the messaging in this song for everyone that is dying to know, Evermore was my era at the concert. That's what I dressed as.
oh,
So I'm actually a folklore girly, I'll have to say. But for that
yeah.
particular evening, I was embracing my Evermore, and
Oh,
that was my era for the show. Um,
yes.
and I just constantly, like, the 2 refrains in this song: never be so polite you forget your
Oh,
power, never wield such power you forget to be polite, which she says later. And then she opens the song also with never be so kind you forget to be clever, never be so clever you forget to be kind. I mean, there are
oh,
things I say to my daughter, there are lessons, they conjure emotion now, like just talking about them. Those words are so powerful. And then if you imagine someone like a grandmother saying that to you, somebody that has all of this wisdom and that has lived,
oh,
especially in a different time for women, right?
yeah.
Like, it's really just so powerful. I'm so
It
glad you brought this
is.
song.
Oh my gosh, your emotions are making me emotional. Oh my gosh, I'm tearing up over here too. This is why we do this. This is
Right?
why we share and we feel and we tap into that space and the intentionality in all of Taylor's songs. I mean, I have been a true fan from the beginning. I remember sitting in the office chair at my friend's house and I heard Tim McGraw for the first time.
Oh,
And it was 2006. And I, from that moment, was like, who is this? And all throughout my life, people have associated me very closely with Taylor because as people are now discovering on this massive scale, like I have not ever seen, whoo, she is just it's amazing to witness the power that her words have and
yep.
knowing all along and watching her journey develop and then getting to this point where she was challenging herself during COVID to write in such different ways that we had not seen either or heard either from her as fans before. And then when those albums dropped, I totally relate to the very deep feelings associated to what that album meant to us in that time period. And knowing if it meant that much to us, what it means to her to have created that and to bring that gift to others and sharing your words and sharing your vulnerable sides. I always say that words are my superpower, even though it might seem that skating is my superpower. And that's a way that I've been able to tap into those words and translate. And I write a bunch as well. I play the piano and I love creating. I've just never taken the risk like she's had to share those things, but watching the emotions that those words just brought out of the 2 of us. And I know that people can't see the visual between us right now, but
Yeah.
it's powerful and
Yeah.
it's so important to create and it's so important to embrace that and let go of those fears that keep us from reaching that next space where we get to blossom and we get to sparkle and shine.
It's
And it's
true.
so beautiful to just see what different words bring out of people and how they create this magnificent story for us. I love romanticizing my life. I think that it's so important to
Why
do.
not? And you're
Why
saying,
not?
like, people think you think words are your superpower, and you think others think it's skating. I'm like, it's both, girl. You have
Yeah,
both. You can have
bring
more than
it
one
all.
superpower. I declare it now.
Yes.
So
Bring
I
it
think that,
on.
yeah, I think that I like that feels so just real to me. And I think that us giving ourselves permission to do that is something that, like, once you do that, the world just opens up in a completely different way. So once again, Taylor Swift has brought us all together. That's why
Right?
I'll never stop talking about T Swift. But
I
then
agree.
then we take a really interesting turn with your second pick. So
Yeah.
I'm very curious about how this song that I literally have not listened to in probably 25 years. Like I'm sure I've heard it, but I haven't
Yeah.
listened. It was again like such a joy and surprise to have this one pop on the playlist. So tell us about your
Yeah.
second pick.
So my second pick is How Bizarre by OMC.
Oh,
And
love.
I love this song. First of all, just the way that it sounds, it's so happy. It always brings up the mood, no matter what mood I'm in. But this song, just as I was kind of describing with the way that Marjorie came into the picture, this song has also played a very intricate role in my skating journey. And particularly, there's one day, and I would tell you this story, but this story is a story. And so I will plug this episode right now, Behind the Blades. It's called The Circle.
Okay.
And that episode is what this song describes and means to me. And to put that in a nutshell for you, it's how bizarre these moments, as we were just talking about, the connectivity of life, and how if you pay attention, the universe will give you all of these signs and opportunities to pick up and go, will I say yes to the adventure? Will I just go and embrace what the world has for me and trust that, pardon me, I'm going to end up in the right space at the right time? And it was very clear on this particular day that the group of people who all were together, we all had a circle in common. And the circle is what brought us all together. And circles obviously are never ending and connecting. And
Yeah,
it played the soundtrack to that in particular is one of the most magical days ever, ever on my skates. And the power of embracing, as we were just talking about, stepping into the unknown and shedding the fear of putting yourself out there. And I struggle heavily with social anxiety at
hmm,
times. And though I might come across as a very extroverted, energetic person, I think that there are many times when I am out on my skates or I am just out doing my job that I am overcome with this fear of I don't want to speak to people, or I don't want them to perceive me a certain way. I get in my head. But this song helps me, first of all, tap into that confidence energy. And then I just start dancing, and then I kind of lose myself in the moment again. And then when I really am aligned with that vibrational level, what happens is the energy that's attracted to that is incredible. And when you embrace it, and what happens in the bizarre moments of the universe, you start to recognize like maybe it is supposed to be bizarre. Maybe we are just supposed to be like these free flowing creative individuals. And the more bizarre you are to the people who aren't tapped into that side of themselves, and allowing others to feel that safe space to be sparkly and to be shining and bright, and embracing that in each other. What happens when you are allowing that? I mean, it's changed my life. I would venture to say that it's changed others' lives. And this
absolutely.
song just really describes that day perfectly. And I listen to it just all the time, and I'll get those little universe moments whenever it comes on. And I'm like, yeah, there it is again. The power you can always tap into it. You can always bring it to the forefront and to be mindful, like we're talking about. So it is one of my all-time favorite songs for sure. I'm so glad you got to listen to it again and have that
Love.
moment.
Yeah, it's so funny. And I love too that you called out, we're going to digress a bit here, but I love that you called out having the social anxiety while being perceived as an extrovert. That's something, again, that's like wisdom of age. It took me so long to understand that about myself. Like, again,
Yes.
I'm outgoing. People are like, what do you mean you're having anxiety about talking to people? You talk to people all the time. You have a podcast. You do this. You were on stage as a actress, for not professionally, for fun, as a hobby, like all of these things. And still, yeah, like there are so many times where I feel like paralyzed by having to socialize. And I think that that's something that nobody talked to me about. It was like, you're an introvert or you're an extrovert, and that's it. And
Yeah.
so now, like, being able to understand, like, oh, you know what that tells me, and I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but when I'm feeling that really strongly, it means I need to recharge. It means I need to refill my bucket a little bit, and I need to like make sure I'm taking care of me and not giving so much that I'm ignoring myself, which is sometimes a great way that extroverts don't deal with some of the things we need to deal with, at least for
Yes.
me. And so that's become kind of a constant reminder. Like when I start to feel that panic of like, oh, I have to walk into a room of people that I don't know, which sometimes can be incredibly energizing,
Amazing, right?
because I'm waiting for those bizarre moments in life to happen. Like I don't even really recall where I read it now, but at one point I read about somebody talking about life and wanting to have the full body experience, right? Like if you're going to be here and you're going to put a soul in a body and live in this existence, like I want the full body experience. That means the bizarre, the sad, the fun, the blissful, the unexpected, the change, the scary, the exploration, like all of it. I want all of
Yeah.
it. And I
All of
think when I was able to understand that and embrace that and realize that things don't have to be so binary, so yes or no, so black or white, so extrovert or introvert, it really
yeah.
opened up that full body experience for me. I was able to have all of those emotions and feelings in between. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense at all?
Yes, you are
Okay.
spot on. You are spot on with embracing, as people say, kind of reading between the lines or coloring outside the lines or just allowing that full spectrum of, you were talking about how I just wear rainbows. Like,
Yeah,
I want to live in the feeling of being like a rainbow, and I want others to feel that too. And that does look like that there are some days where the clouds and the storms are, that's how you get the rainbow.
exactly.
And you have to feel all of those emotions in order to appreciate those moments when you are gifted the most magical of experiences by the universe. And there are times when you have to walk into those rooms where you don't feel, as you said, fully like you are able to offer what you know your full energetic potential is, because you are being asked to retreat and dive into being there for yourself right now. And the right people will understand how to give that space and how to even feed into what you need if you've got those close people in your circle, and learning how to cultivate that energy again and what you need to do to get there is so important. And that's what skating really does for me, is bring that back. And then you get the moments of meeting people like you, Jen, and the universe just aligning that properly. It's like, wow, it's just so magical, it's so bizarre, it's so wonderful. But then there's moments when it's awful and it's so painful and it's so
Yeah,
hard. And then you just realize, like, this is temporary. Everything is temporary. And you can get through that day as in the same amount of time that you got through the day where everything was magnificent.
it's
And
so
being
true.
present in both of those is so important. We don't want to feel hard things sometimes. We want to avoid those negative, hard emotions, but it's so important to feel those and create a space that is safe, that is good for you to release that energy. So, oh, I hope people have that outlet, and I hope that people are able to tap into that.
And I think that too, it's funny, like thinking about a song like this, and How Bizarre was a song that came out like OMC. I think this might have been their only album. They're a band from New Zealand. The album came out in early 96, but this song dropped, I think, in December of 95.
Yeah.
And it was everywhere. So back
Yeah.
then, like this song was everywhere. And it's so representative of the mid 90s, like sort of coming
Yes.
out of this grunge into the pop sound. These weird story or like nonsensical songs were kind of like popping up everywhere. And
Yeah.
I think that, whenever we were talking about how, a song can put you in a time or place, or a song can make you feel connected to somebody that's passed on, or even in a situation where you are feeling some social anxiety, but you have to endure. Like the first thing that came to my mind when you were talking about that is like being in a work situation where, you have to go to a convention or something and you have to meet people. And sometimes, again, when you're not in that space or you're having anxiety around it, a way that I could motivate myself to go do that would be to walk into that space, and then maybe a song like How Bizarre had just come on the radio as I was getting out of the car. And that's
Mhm.
something I could carry into that venue and be like, oh my gosh, you know what just happened? I heard that song How Bizarre on the radio right before I came in. Do you guys know that song? And like some
Yes.
way I'm able to make a connection with something that's safe for me. And even
Yeah.
if nobody in the circle, to bring it back, if nobody in that space knows the song, well then still we've got a jumping off point, right?
Yeah.
Like I've found that music, like other things, but for me music is just the great connector. It's always an entry point into tapping into people's emotions. And even if people say like I'm not a music lover, or oh I don't know who sang that, you can still get them talking about music in some
Yeah.
way, even
Yeah.
if it's not somebody that wants to take the deep dive and like find all of the Easter eggs in all of the Taylor Swift like we do. Like
Yeah.
it still gives you a chance to connect and to sort of drop in to someone's life and sort of where they are. And so that's why, again, I think a song like this is
Yeah.
just so amazing, because I haven't heard it in 25 years, probably, like
Oh,
listened, and I still knew every word. First off,
yeah.
like still knew every word to the song, and it still put a smile on my face. Like it's this
Yes.
crazy story of like a Pele and Xena driving around with the singer, and all of the different people that they meet, and
Yes.
just one of those crazy days,
Yeah.
wherever you're just like, and we've all had those. I hope we've all had those. I hope we've all been lucky enough to have those like magical, silly days where like you think like, uh-oh, this is going to be bad. And then it turns into just this really like crazy situation where you're like,
Right.
okay.
Yes, I love that it can transport us there, invite that opportunity, and just what becomes by embracing as it starts off cruising down the freeway in the hot, hot sun. Like,
Yeah.
we know something about that here. And I think that it's all in the perspective, right? You can hear people talk about how miserably hot it can be at times here. But if you shift it in the other perspective and you go, wow, I live in a place where like the sun is shining and the opportunities are abundant. And though it is hot and though it is brutal out there at times, you never know what's waiting around the corner if you just get in the car and you cruise, or you throw in your skates and you cruise and you just take life. I tell people a lot that, oh my gosh, I've had like the best day of my life. And they're like, Tara, how can you have this many best days of your life? And they're often very just mundane, so to say, moments. But when you start to realize that the very simple things in life are the reasons that keep you going, it's seeing a rainbow, it's seeing, getting caught in the rainstorm on your skates, it's getting caught in the mess of it. That's the beauty of it all. And that's what this song really invites in, is just that simple moment. Who knew when they were creating this song that many years ago that it was going to take off in the way that it did then? And then even for me now, I hope that people will go and listen to this and it might
Yes.
spark that joy again, and they'll share it with somebody else. And oh, it's just the power of music. It's magnificent. Oh
Well,
my
and
God.
the song's a bop. Like at the end of the
It's a
day,
bop.
Like, it's just a bop.
It's
Like,
a bop.
you can't not like move to it and put, like, even if you think it's silly, like, it still puts a smile on your face. So
Yeah,
yes, I hope listeners will rediscover this song as well. It, like, if for
yeah,
nothing else, just to have like a moment of reminiscence or a moment to be like, this song is kooky. Like, for people that are hearing it for the first time. So I definitely
yeah,
love that. But I do want to
yes.
chat just because I find it so fascinating before we transition into my songs.
I know.
So
I want to know.
tell me about how you found skating. Has it always been inline skates? Did you ever roller skate, like four-wheel skates? Like, tell me about
Yeah,
how skating came to you. It's obviously something that you're passionate about. It's something that you're incredibly good at. It's something
yeah.
that you skated a marathon in. I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing. So I really want to know, like, I'm always interested when people find their joy, and especially
Yeah.
when it's something that's a little bit unique. Like, how did you find this particular piece of joy in your life and this skill that you had? How old were
Oh,
you? Like, how did
yeah.
skating come into your life?
So I did skate as a kid, but I don't remember having it in the space, taking up this space that it does in my life now as it did when I was younger. I think I was quite occupied by other sports and other opportunities, but I skated as a kid and I have videos of me on quads when I lived in Virginia Beach and I was probably like 3, 4 years old and, skating up the driveway, skating down the sidewalk. So it's always been in my blood, I guess, for me to be on these wheels. And I do recall going to Skate Away is what it was called. And it was the Friday night skate where all your friends met up and it's the quads and we're going around the wooden floors and they're playing the cha-cha slide in the background.
Yes.
It's that moment of like, oh man, just being so young and so innocent and what sparked your joy at that point. And when I got older and when COVID hit, I started thinking about when we were going through a really hard time collectively, right? It was like, what sparked that joy for me as a kid that I could easily bring back into my life as an adult? And it was thinking about, I loved running at the time during COVID and I loved going to the gym, but my knees were in pain and I had just run a half marathon and I had realized like, okay, I feel like I accomplished the goal that I wanted to. How can I keep moving but in a way that's quite fun? So I was gifted my rollerblades and my stepmom, she had sent me these. I had talked about one day, I think I want to start skating again. And then a few days later, shows up at my door this pair of skates. And I had lost my job. I was, one of the unfortunate ones that COVID, I got the boot from employment, but it turned out, and I know that this is a very, very privileged thing for me to say, that COVID was one of the best times in my life. It really allowed me the space to discover how much I love skating and how much I was able to process mentally what I was going through, whether it was losing my job, whether it was other personal circumstances that were happening at the time. It created a safe space for me to allow those emotions to flow through. And I put them on one day, quite like Forrest Gump, just started running and I never stopped skating. It's been 4 years, and I wish I would have had a better system to track how many miles or how many hours I've spent on my skates, but it's got to be well into the thousands in both regard. And
Wow.
it is, I never stopped, and I don't think I'll ever stop. I think it keeps me going. It is the most important relationship that I have in my life to maintain for myself and my spirituality, my creativity. Like, that is the passion that brings me alive. And I love when I get the opportunity to share that with others. And I'd love to build on that in my future and teach others how to skate. I would love to create that space and hope that maybe they'll find that spark. And it's okay if you don't. If you just try it for a time period, at least you tried something new, right? But I really love the inlines because it does. I think I watched figure skating growing up, and
Okay.
the Olympics. We all just watched the Summer Olympics, but I recall being so mesmerized by figure skating and people dancing, and getting outside on my inlines makes me feel that sort of element of this flow and this dreaming of like, I may not be on the ice. I found my space that fits what I love, and the nature and the heat. I do love the heat. I know people think I'm nuts for it, but I found my scene, and I get to create that, again, romanticizing my life, create that moment in my head of what I'm doing and dreaming big. And the marathon was a dream big moment, and working with Rollerblade, the brand, it's kind of synonymous with what people say. um, they're saying I'm going to rollerblade, or
Yeah.
I'm going to Google something. There are a lot of other brands that are inline skates, but there's Rollerblade that kind of became that synonymous
Yeah.
relationship with it. And I just dreamt like maybe one day I could actually work with them. And again, larger stories for the time that we have right now, but it's on my YouTube channel, Blading in Berlin. There's a part one and a part two that gives you the full story of how my skates got lost on the way to this marathon, all of my equipment, everything. My flights were canceled, my hotel was canceled, like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But in the end, Rollerblade and we really came together and created this amazing ending to this story, and it was magnificent again there to just see the power of humans connecting with other humans and supporting their journeys. I had the support of so many people back home, and finishing that marathon that day. Wow, it was for a lot more than just me. It was a lot of people involved, and one of the most amazing experiences in my mid-adult life now, and the feeling of accomplishment that we did this together. We had this moment, and I would love to skate in more marathons. I would love to do some future. We've got a trail that's being built between Austin and San Antonio. I used to live in San Antonio, did a lot of community work there. I'd love to do, it's like 100 miles.
Wow.
I would love to get on and go that far. That would be a true dream come true that I will probably make happen. I will make happen.
You will make happen. I believe you will. And I have to ask, did you have music on while you were skating in the marathon?
Ha- I battled with that heavily because I knew that skating as I go throughout the streets here, it motivates me when I have the music on. But when I went and skated that, though I did have the equipment to listen, and you can listen, I wanted that day to give me the natural music of the city and the sounds
Perfect.
and the sights, and I wanted to immerse myself fully in that moment. So I did not have music when I was skating the marathon.
That's good. You know what? I asked the question because I did want to see like where the skating ends and the music begins and the meditation
Yeah,
happens and all that. And it really is. I really think it's the skating for you that is like the magic, and the I think maybe the music is kind of the conduit to connect the two. Do you know what I
yes,
mean? And so I
absolutely.
love that you were just completely in your element and in your moment in this foreign city, and like Berlin is amazing.
Oh,
Like to be there and skating, like just what an amazing story. And I am so happy that you shared that with us, because it really,
unreal.
like, that was one of the first things you shared whenever we first met. And I just thought, I
Yeah,
didn't even know that was a thing. I did not even know you could skate a marathon. Like that
yes,
is, that's
yes.
bonkers to me. So I thought that that was great. But
That was part one of Jenn's interview with Tara Parker. Come back next week to hear Jenn's picks and the rest of the conversation.